You're all right. It can exist in open chain form. The anomeric carbon has not been modified, right? Further than closing. It can exist in open chain form. That's your answer, right? It has some degree of existence in its linear form, where you still have a covalent carbon. Yes, I said it again. Deal with it. Let's go back. Let's do like this.
I mean, in all honesty, myself, they would come in with this picture or have some figures like that's 5 days, what? 5 days. I was primarily worried about that to get in. Really? I hope you're right, but no offense, I think bank on you being wrong. So very much to be true. I just can't believe this.
We'll see. Hopefully it works today. Let's do this. Lactose. If I asked you to draw lactose, I would have to give you some information. I would have to tell you that it is comprised of beta-D-galactose, D-glucose, and I'll have the open chain form. Blue, beta-D-galactose. And from this form, I want you to take 2 minutes and see if you can draw this linkage. Beta-D-galactose and D-glucose. Draw your ring structure for galactose and see if you can come up with a linkage for beta-D-galactose and D-glucose. Yes, I didn't give you beta or alpha glucose. It doesn't. Okay, let's name it. Even if you haven't drawn it, you did it incorrectly, you still should be able to name the linkage. You know where the linkage is occurring, you know it's occurring between this carbon and this carbon, right? You know where the linkage is occurring, so it's occurring between carbon number 1 and carbon number 4, right? Carbon number 1 of beta-degalactose. So it is a beta-galactose, right? So it's a beta-1, what kind of linkage? 4, right? So if you're asked to name the linkage, do you have to draw the structure to name the linkage? No. Not if you know that they're both 6-membered rings, you don't. You don't need that. You don't need that information. However, if we're going to draw this correctly, for your exam, you should be able to draw these. You should be able to draw these. Even if you're not able to draw these, or if you mess up drawing these, it really shouldn't affect your naming. It should not affect the way you name these. Okay, we're going to go on to polysaccharides and finish up. We've drawn disaccharides, we've named disaccharides based on the linkage. We've talked about a few linkages. What's that? Sure. We've talked about a few linkages. Move up. We've talked about specifically, we're going to talk about these when it comes to polysaccharides. Alpha-1,4 glucose linkages. Linkages between two glucoses. Alpha-1,4 linkages versus beta-1,4 linkages. They look different. They're going to make a difference structurally. You good? When it comes to polysaccharides, we're going to talk about 4 types of polysaccharides. And when it comes to nomenclature, you can imagine we have homo, hetero, named based on how many sugars. But both of these, the more important part, can be branched or not. Homo polysaccharides are made up of the same sugar. Heteropolysaccharides are made up of different sugars, usually 2 alternating sugars in some sort of pattern. But both of these can be branched or not branched. First polysaccharide, we're going to talk about starch. It's found exclusively in plants in 2 different forms. Starch is found exclusively in plants in 2 different forms. It is found as amylose alpha amylose. It's found as alpha amylopectin. Alpha amylose consists of about 20% of starches. Amylopectin is about 80% of starches. They exist in amylopectin form versus amylose form. Amylose is linear. Amylopectin is branched. When I say linear, I mean not branched. I guess I should have said branched and not branched. That probably would have been better. Alpha amylose is not branched. Amylopectin is branched. You see this as an alpha 1,6, I'm sorry, 1,4 linkage. And amylopectin, you see an alpha 6 linkage. You see both in amylopectin. The alpha 1,6 linkage is for the branch. So in both of, what's up?
For the 20 to 80%, is that like composition within plants?
Com-
So like 20% of it is linear, 20 to 80% of it is branch.
Composition of both of these forms of starch among plants is about 20 to 80. Does that make sense? Abundance. I guess I should have said abundance. Amylopectin doesn't just contain alpha 1,6 linkages, if that makes sense. The alpha 1,6 linkages are what are attributed to the branches. Amylose. Amylose has helical structure. It forms micelles. Its color. Amylose is the reason starches, the reason potatoes turn purple, bluish purple, and it's hiding in them. It's high in amylose. The helical characteristic is what interacts with iron. Red. You can imagine amylose has helical structure, amylopectin does not. Why do you think it doesn't?
Branching structure.
Branches all over the place. It would probably be hard to form a nice symmetrical helical structure when you branch all over the place. Amylopectin does not form a helical structure. It branches. It branches every 12 to 30 residues. Each branch is about 30 residues long. That's pretty long, especially compared to the starch analogs in animals. That's long. Animals branch length is less than half. Amylopectin is also hydrophobic. It forms micelles. These micelles also interact with iodine. They don't turn purple. Starch is stored as granules. Starch is stored as granules. We use these granules for cooking. It's a thickening agent. It is a nice plastic analog, naturally occurring plastic analog. Plants can break starch down for energy uses using starch phosphorylase. We do kind of break down starch in our mouth. Our digestive system doesn't do anything with it, but it does break down partly in our mouth using salivary enzymes. Not our digestive tract. The animal version of starch is glycogen. We're not going to take a lot of notes on this because why? It's pretty much the same thing. Animal version, that's pretty much our notes for glycogen. We're trying to get through this. Glycogen, animal version of starch. I told you it's more branched, the branches are shorter, so it branches more frequently. The branch length overall is shorter. It does branch more frequently. We do break down glycogen. Break down glycogen. It is hydrolyzed by an enzyme called Glycogen Phosphorylase. You've heard of this enzyme, right? What do you know about glycogen phosphorylase? Tell me what you guys know about glycogen phosphorylase. You should probably know something about glycogen phosphorylase for your exam. Okay, so it regulates itself in multiple ways. Okay. What does it do? What does it catalyze? What? To what? To glycogen, right? That's what the naming system's for, right? The name tells you what it does. So it breaks down glycogen, it rips off glycogen, phosphorylates one glycogen at a time, and chews up and breaks down hydrolyzing glycogen. So it's hydrolyzed by glycogen phosphate. Thank you. To make glycogen phosphate, glycogen phosphorylase, to produce glucose 1-phosphate. You should know that it produces glucose 1-phosphate. We'll talk more about this later, but you should know that glycogen phosphorylase directly produces glucose. What number? 1-phosphate. That's going to come in play later on. Glycogen phosphorylase, glucose 1-phosphate. That's 6. 1. Cellulose. Cellulose is pretty phenomenal. Plant material, sugars. I know, it's dumb for me to say that. To think of like these big old trees in California being held up by nothing more than carbohydrates, it's crazy. It is really phenomenal. It's neat. It is the most abundant natural structural polymer on the planet. It is composed of E-glucose. It is composed of repeating beta-1,4 linkages. Told you these alpha linkages versus beta linkages are going to have an effect. Repeating, you can tell me, repeating alpha-1,4 linkages lead to what kind of structure? Helical structure, right? Repeating alpha-1,4 glycosidic bonds lead to helical characteristics, right? The glucose. Repeating beta-1,4 linkages do not lead to helical characteristics. This is linear. Alpha-1,4 leads to a helix. Beta-1,4, one of the textbooks, I don't remember which one, called it an extended ribbon. I thought that was funny. Called it an extended ribbon. I thought that was suspect. I don't know why they don't just call it like pleated sheet like they do with beta sheet, because they kind of look like the same thing. But anyway, it calls it an extended ribbon. I thought that was cute. What does it matter? What does it matter? Alpha, beta, who cares? Who cares? That's a big difference. Enzymatically, biologically, it makes a big difference. Specific enzymes are targeted for alpha versus specific enzymes targeted for beta. It makes a big difference. We've talked about from the get-go. You can tell from Texas games. If you're not from Texas, you've probably never heard from the get-go, especially if you're not from the States. Who's not from the States? Have you heard the phrase "from the get-go"? No? You have? Okay. Oh. I don't know. It makes a big difference enzymatically. Why? Because a lot of things can break down alpha-1,4 glucose bonds. Not very many things can break down beta-1,4 glucose bonds. We said from day 4, stereochemistry matters. Not only stereochemistry, but structure matters. Biological processes have the ability to target specific things. Things that are hard for us to see are not hard for biological processes to see. Enzymes are specifically targeted for alpha-1,4 glycosidic bonds. Various enzymes are specifically targeted for beta-1,4 glycosidic bonds. Enzymes targeted for beta-glycosidic or 1,4 glycosidic bonds are typically more rare than alpha-1,4 glycosidic bonds. What type of organisms do you think should be able to break down beta-1,4 bonds?
Ruminants.
What?
Ruminants.
So somebody said this the other way. I guess it's been a long biology major.
Microorganisms
Right.
in the rumen.
Yeah. So you're a biology major, right?
Yeah.
You must be. Because you knew that word. You knew that word. I didn't know this word yet. It's been so long since I took biology. Tell everybody what a ruminant is.
It's just a grazing animal.
A grazing animal.
Yeah,
So that was something that I learned the other day. I didn't know this, and you're all gonna be like, "Oh, what an idiot! You should know that." It's been a long time since I've been in a biology class. You're right. Grazing animals. Grazing animals. Things like termites can break down wood. Things like that. They need to break down plant material. Things like that. So ruminants, grazing animals, cows, horses. If you were to ask me, I would have said cows and horses, not ruminants. But you're right. Specific animals are targeted for specific things. Most don't produce, so cellulase, I guess that's the name of the enzyme class that breaks down cellulose. Most animals or organisms do not produce cellulase. And we are not going to talk about the animal analog of cellulose, chitin, chitin, whatever you want to say. I'm going to say it correct. Why? Because I'm up here and you're over there, so I'm right. I'm going to say chitin. If you want to say chitin, you can. It's free country. You can be wrong. My dad served in the army. No, my dad didn't serve in the army. But I'll tell you, the real thing, the story's better. My dad served in the army so that you had the right to be wrong. That's fine. You're free to believe what you want to believe. You can be wrong and pronounce that chitin all you want. My dad didn't serve. Okay. Lastly, dietary fiber. Not lastly, we still have glycoproteins to talk about. Dietary fiber. What is dietary fiber? Dietary fiber, insoluble parts of carbohydrates, things that you can't break down. So I guess not really insoluble. Well, they can be insoluble. They could also be soluble. Indigestible. Portions of carbs. So what does it mean? You look up dietary fiber. These are indigestible portions of carbohydrates. These are broken down into two classes, soluble versus insoluble. This is why when you're doing I asked you guys if anybody had done the Atkins diet, right? Somebody said yes. You said you did the keto diet, didn't you?
I did.
This is why when you're doing Atkins diet, they tell you to count your total carbs and then subtract the dietary fiber. Why do you subtract the dietary fibers? Because it's indigestible material. It's fiber it's carbs that you eat that you don't digest. So you get to subtract that. You know, the first time I did this, I didn't do that. I didn't read the instructions. I was like, I'll cut back on carbs. I didn't do that. I felt like I was starving myself because I was eating all these leafy greens, plant materials, cucumbers. I remember eating zucchini, and zucchini has a lot of dietary fiber. So I'd eat one zucchini in it, and even though I was supposed to subtract like 90% of those carbs away, I didn't. So I just didn't eat very much, and I didn't feel very good. Don't do that. If you're going to do a diet, read the diet. Anyway, dietary fiber, soluble versus insoluble. Soluble portions are used a little differently. Soluble portions, bacteria. Go nuts on this. Go nuts. Bacteria go nuts. That is a biochemistry phrase. Bacteria go nuts. Breaking this stuff down. produces gas. It prolongs gastric time. So prolongs gastric time. You feel like you feel full longer. This is most of these soluble carbohydrates, soluble dietary fibers, soluble indigestible carbohydrates come from things like fruits, beans, some veggies. Insoluble fibers are metabolically inert. Why? Because they're insoluble. They absorb water. You can imagine they absorb water as they pass through the GI tract. What does this do? This in the most underline this because this is important. I can't say it another way. It eases passage through the gastric tract. I read one thing. I was reading things and I was like, how do I say this in a formal way? Got giggling. I have 4 boys, so we giggle about this thing. The funniest way I saw it written was it reduces transient time. What's up?
I have a question. What's the meaning of that bacteria going nuts?
So bacteria in your intestinal system, this is what it feeds on. It feeds on things that you can't break down. So that's what it does.
So there's a nutrient?
What?
There's a nutrition.
What?
It's just the nutrition.
It's just the nutrition.
For them.
For them, yes, correct. Not for you. For them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. Insoluble. It eases passage. That's how I thought to say it. The funniest one I saw was it reduces transient time. And thinking of this as like terms of we just did talking about transient intermediates of enzymatic reactions and mechanisms. I thought it was funny. Reduces transient time. And what is this? This is plant based. This is plant wall material, cell wall material. This is the structural stuff, things like cellulose. I want to talk to you real quickly, and I didn't even make anywhere to write this down. I told you I made some copy-paste fails. This was another copy-paste fail. That wasn't supposed to be. I did want to talk to you real quick. There's a section in the Biochem book that talks about this to some degree, actually a pretty in-depth degree. We're not going to talk about it. The literature textbook, I didn't see it at all in this chapter, or any chapters associated with this stuff. I'm talking about the role of carbohydrates in bacterial cells, and bacterial structure of bacterial cells. The difference, carbohydrates play a role in the difference between identification of gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. Whereas if you don't have the lineage, or if you don't have the Biochem text, you probably didn't see this. If you have the Biochem text, and it is in some good detail in the Biochem text. How do sugars play a role in the difference in gram-negative and gram-positive cells? Most of you guys are taking microbiology, I'm assuming, right? Right now you're taking it? Okay. So you, what kind of lab? What do you do in micro here? I didn't take it here, so I don't know. What do you do in micro? I loved micro. I loved micro. Yeah. What do you do in the micro lab? That's what I was saying. What do you do? Figure out line notes. You look at stuff under a microscope. I like micro. I remember taking micro. It was the funnest lab I ever took. Micro was fun. Anyway, in micro, at one point, of course, you're going to identify gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria, right? Yeah. Right? Okay. I assume that's probably one of the first things you do. What is the difference? Why does one take up the stain? Why does one not take up the stain? The difference in gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, as you will see in the textbook. What's up?
Oh, sorry, I think you were asking a question.
No. The difference in gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria is that gram-negative bacteria don't take up the stain, where gram-positive bacteria do. Why? Because most bacteria will form this coat. I just thought of something that was going to sound, I was going to say a sugar coat, but then it kind of reminded me of M&M's. It's not an M&M, not at all. They form this coat of amino acid residues and sugars, this sugar peptide backbone, and cover the entire cell and protect it. Real thick layer in gram-positive, real thick layer of peptoglycogen support in positive, gram-positive bacteria. Gram-negative bacteria still have this protective layer. However, it's thinner and it's smashed between two membranes, so it's not on the outside. So why do gram-positive bacteria stain this color? Because their protective layer that's able to be stained is on the outside of the cell, outside of the cellular membrane. In a gram-negative bacteria, it is not outside of the cell. It's a smaller membrane that's smushed, or it's a smaller protective layer that's layered in between two membranes, so it doesn't see it. That's a bit of information most of you know. Glycoproteins. The one thing I want to talk about glycoproteins, at the very beginning we said glycoproteins are neat. Why? Because these carbohydrates are used in cellular communication. And that's neat. That's useful information. The main thing we're going to talk about is how are these formed. And we're going to talk about the one thing that is really, really necessary for some of the mechanisms we're going to be talking about for your next exam. Glycoproteins, so carbohydrate chains, polypeptide chains, carbohydrates attach to a protein, so it has to attach via amino acid somewhere, right? And attach two different ways. You can attach, we call it O-link or N-link. So it can attach to an oxygen of an R group, or it can attach to a nitrogen of an R group, of an amino acid. So O-linked glycoproteins are linked via the OH serine or threonine. N-linked, the amide nitrogen of asparagine. So O-linked glycoproteins. O-linked glycoproteins. Sugar is linked via the OH, the R group of serine or threonine. N-linkages occur via the amide of asparagine. Yes, there are other amino acid residues that can participate in linkages, none of which are common amino acids. These are just the common ones. And what does this look like? Imagine we have a nice sugar chain, sugars, and finally we'll get to our last sugar. Right, so our last sugar, let's just assume it's this. I'm going to leave this blank down here for a second. We're going to talk about it in a minute. This carbohydrate comes from, let's say this is a serine residue. Serine residue, this would be our oxygen from our OH group of serine. Alpha carbon of serine. And this is in an amino acid chain. Let's see, minus, and this goes on to another amino acid, and this to H. Right? So it's a protein, it's just one residue in a protein. So here would be a peptide bond going one way, right? And here would be a peptide bond. So this is an example of an O linkage. An O linkage in a glycoprotein. Last thing, common we'll finish next time. Yep. We have probably 2 more minutes and then we'll be on to chapter 10. I will be in the office all day.